I'm Tim Ventura from AmericanAntiGravity.com, and I'm interviewing Bob Iannini. Bob's the owner of Information Unlimited, which has been making high-quality power supplies, high-voltage equipment, and a variety of other products used by inventors and experimenters the world over for a number of years now. Bob, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can, Tim.
Great. Well, I'd like to start out by asking about your new book. Now, if I remember right, it's Electronic Projects for the Evil Genius, isn't it?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what makes this book what makes it different? What makes it unique? Because you've had several books in the past with experiments in them.
Yes, well, this book kind of goes into products and projects that aren't readily available to the individual hobbyist or amateur experimenter. They go into a relatively new field of electrokinetics, obviously anti-gravity, which is your lifter, of course,
Yeah, yeah,
and some other subject material, high voltage, electromagnetic pulse, and projects of that nature.
yeah. Well, I actually bought a copy of the book, and it has amazing stuff in it. The lifter stuff, I contributed some photos there, and they came out perfectly. I was really impressed, not just with that section, but with the book as a whole. But one of the things that I'd like to touch on is the book covers tons and tons of different projects. One of the things I'd like to ask about, I noticed you had a can crusher in there and some very high output magnetic devices. It looks like you've been doing more work with those lately. Is there anything you could tell me about that?
Well, yeah, we make a presentation in the book showing the use of these projects with relatively reasonably easy to get obtainable parts. In our lab, we have much higher powered units and things of that nature, but of course, not everybody has access to Maxwell 30, 40 kiloamp discharge capacitors that can really take a can and literally explode it. So basically, these are projects that the capacitors are readily available. I'm not saying they're everywhere, but they are low cost pieces that can be found on the web if you look hard enough. And of course, we have them. We also offer the parts, the backup parts and pieces, and also a kit of the pulsar.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that's really impressed me is that you're really the only company out there supplying parts to the high voltage experimenters and hobbyists. And there are a lot of people out there where the only place they can find these parts are in Information Unlimited. And I know that with the lifter power supplies, that's been really my only recommendation. They're much less expensive than the commercial grade supplies, and the majority of commercial grade supplies don't even produce the kind of power that's required in the first place. But
Right.
uh, yeah, I was wondering. Now you have the GRA 10, I think, right? You have the smaller size, and then
Yeah, we're constantly updating and upgrading the project kits to for better quality and better operational type performance. And right now, believe it or not, the GRA 1 and the GRA 8 are already modified. You may not even have the newer project plans to them.
oh, okay. I actually think I have one of the older ones.
Right.
Yeah, the reports I'm getting back are people are setting these things up and testing them, and we have 12 to 15-year-old children with their parents' permission taking these things to science fairs all over the country now, which is really impressive. So the Information Limited is you've definitely made a big contribution there, just to helping educate kids about high voltage electricity and different projects like that.
Right. Well, we will be doing a follow-up book. McGraw-Hill has asked us to do a follow-up book of another 28 projects. So that book will probably be released sometime in 2005 or early 2006, and it's going to be dwelling on some real nice, neat, and interesting projects. Probably a lot of them not advisable for children, but nonetheless, they certainly will be projects that will be very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, and on the topic of not for kids, one of the things I should ask about is you've told me numerous stories about some of the larger scale experimental work you've done, lots of kinetic impact stuff.
Yes,
Lots of high power pulse laser stuff. Are there
yes.
any projects that come to mind that really impressed you when you conducted them?
Well, you've got to, like I said before, you've got to present material in a book that's going to go to the public that they can actually build within a reasonable pricing structure. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
some of these things, like a Marx generator, some of the Marx generators that we have that produce up to 2 million volts at up to 10 kilojoules are really well beyond the capacity of the average hobbyist, unless he has beaucoup dollars.
yeah. Well, that
And
and the power is also off hands to a lot of people, especially like three phase is off limits to pretty much everybody. But even stuff like 220 is really difficult to work with. I have an arc welder that I've actually connected to my dryer plug, and just that alone took a week or so to get the plug set up and working right. But it's still interesting to see these projects. Your magazine cover had a picture of, I'm not sure what it was. It looked like a rocket, but it had like a 40-foot stream of dust or something going straight up into the air.
that was if I remember correctly, that was a rail gun that fired about a quarter of a kilogram projectile into water, and you can see the mainframe of the system there, aimed at the water. That was the kinetic impact that caused that.
Oh, okay. Well, you also had one of the things that you've been selling for years now is actually a real laser gun kit where, not quite Star Trek power levels, but still, large enough and powerful enough that it can burn and etch pretty effectively, right?
Yeah, we gave a demonstration not too long ago. I think it was early this year, early this year or late last year. Actually, starting a fire in a fireplace. In other words, getting the fire going in a fireplace without any kindling, just with the laser, handheld laser.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the
That's
things.
on video. That'll be on our website. Where we are in a stage of totally upgrading our website and adding an awful lot of new material. It's a long, slow process, but it is being done, and I believe we're completing a good part of the high voltage section as we speak, and it should be up and almost running in another 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. You'd also mentioned that you might be going into business actually manufacturing some high voltage components. Any news on
Yeah,
that?
we're setting up right now we're investigating setting up for doing high voltage capacitors and specialty high voltage transformers. I'm doing a lot of work now as far as putting the figures together on the investment capital I've got to come up with to do this, and weighing whether or not it's going to be economical to go into this. There are an awful lot of people into high energy capacitors. I can go on and name them for all day. But the problem of it is cost and availability. Trying to squeeze one of these capacitors out of these people for a decent price is very, very difficult. Now, these capacitors, granted, you take Tomergic or Sorrento, one of those suppliers. They supply a real high quality capacitors, no question about it. And but it's a top dollar item. But for the professional researcher, it's probably worth every cent that they spend for it. But for a lot of the amateur projecteers, these capacitors sometimes are a little bit overkill, and we feel as though we can introduce to the market a much lower cost capacitor and give them almost the same performance.
Yeah, well, and in the case of the lifters, by a strange coincidence, that the power supplies that Information Unlimited makes, a lot of them are flyback based, and we'd found that because the flyback is actually a pulse DC, for some reason, it actually seems to work better. We get about 1.5 times the thrust output from the lifters that we would with a flat DC supply. So in a lot of cases, it either doesn't the super precision isn't there, or else it just doesn't apply to the experiment. And so spending some of the power supplies I've seen are like $10,000, $15,000, and
Yep.
the only thing that makes them cost that is that you can control the voltage down to microvolts. But
Right.
For my work, it hasn't been that important. And I think for most people, they kind of they look at the price and say, it's not that important anymore. So,
Well, that particular transformer using that power supply, we developed years and years ago, probably about 10 years ago, for, believe it or not, the gas tube discharge market. And we own the proprietary rights to that transformer, and we have it manufactured over in our facilities over in the Far East. And that particular transformer that's used in that power supply has exceeded 2 million pieces. Now, not for that power supply, but in the trade, as far as doing the lumen glow, all types of those little neon artifacts that you see, the little squirrely curlicues in them that are done by Spencer Gifts and
oh, okay,
Hoffman
okay,
Products and some of those. That transformer has got a very, very good track record, and probably is the heart of a lot of these small power supplies.
yeah, yeah. Well, you'd also mentioned to me a while ago that you'd actually built a tornado generator, and that had kind of piqued my interest because it's something that, from what you'd mentioned, it was a pretty easy plywood project. Does that show up
Well,
in any of the
yeah,
books?
actually making a swirling vortex out of air is done. It has been done by a gentleman up in Vermont, Tom Grazoulis of the Tornado Project, and we got the data from Tom, and we built one up. But we went a little bit further. We put lightning discharges through it and things like that. That will probably be a project in book number 2.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know, because there is a company that does museums for airports and things like that that's very interested in this particular project once we refine it. And I don't want to, bring it into the limelight, so to speak, right now until I get a firm answer from them on where they want to go with it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one of the things that you'd also told me about as another project, you'd mentioned storing energy in the coil and then shorting out the coil as a means to obtain really high energy pulses of electricity. Any progress on that so far?
Well, that's not anything new. I mean, a ductor is an energy storage device, and when you're using high-powered electrokinetic devices, you do use inductive storage, and you can use a series of rail switches and crowbar switches and things of that nature there to convert this energy into the railgun.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's just another way of storing energy, and it's very convenient for a lot of mathematical reasons, which I don't really want to go into right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've seen some of the footage that Sam Barros has put online, and one of the interesting things about it is just the projectile speeds are incredible. It's a really fun thing to play with because, Barros actually it disintegrates as it goes down his rail, so he actually has
Yep,
this kind of flaming metal powder that comes out the end, but it's going at just incredibly high speeds.
yep, yep, yep. Well, yeah, you can get some amazing velocities. We have a compulsator that we're driving with a 6.8 liter Ford Cobra V8 engine, and that is going to be able to produce an awful lot of stored energy power for some of the experiments we're going to be doing hopefully this summer. If not this summer, it'll have to be next summer. But I've got so many things online right now. But you've got to remember now, the book presents these projects as convenient projects that the builder can build. They're not by any means to be construed as final solutions to electrokinetics or anything like that. We have been able to accelerate a small projectile in the range of 9 millimeters to almost 1,000 feet per second, and that is, I believe, they did a video clip on that in our Tech TV section.
Oh, okay, okay,
It
yeah.
shows that we actually compare a 380 caliber Kurtz, which is a copper-coated projectile, and then we had a piece of tungsten put into, formed to a piece of aluminum and accelerated that so it went through a 2x4 just like the 380 did. That we had a video of.
Oh, yeah. To be honest, I wasn't even sure if some of the kinetic stuff was in the book. I just
Well,
these
no,
were.
that's not in the book. That wouldn't be in the book.
Oh,
We
yeah,
can't
yeah,
put that in the book at this stage.
yeah, definitely. Well, and it's not the kind of thing that you want, 9 or 10 year old people building. So,
No, no, no. But I'm saying it was just for the Tech TV thing. It was a different type of an audience they were catering to.
well, one of the things I should ask is you have this incredible experience, 30 years of experience working with this kind of technology, and you've said some really, just incredible and meaningful things to me over the years about ion wind and the Beefield Brown effect. And I know that you lean more towards the ion wind explanation for things, but I was wondering if you might have any thoughts about that.
Well, I haven't been able to prove otherwise, and then, unfortunately, I haven't been able to do any testing, to prove one way or the other. But just from the mathematical part of what I see, to me, it looks like it's an ion wind, a mechanical reactionary thing that's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is what it seems to be. And until I can get into it and prove elsewise, this is the way I will form my opinion.
Oh, well, and that makes sense. It's the ion wind part of it is highly engineerable, and one of the things that's in some ways a plus, in some ways a minus about the lifters is the engineerability of it. But there were a lot of things like the relaxation times for the ions and things like that, where you were really the only source of guidance that I was able to find on the issue.
Right.
So,
Well, one of the things that is going to either make that project sink or swim is going to be when somebody comes along with a super duper dielectric. If you've ever gone through some of the mathematical relationships in charge and charge forces due to charge, mechanical forces due to charge, you'll see that they become astronomical when you can charge an object up to a decent amount of charge energy, as referenced in coulombs. But the problem of it is that to put a charge on an object of small dimension, practical dimension, you have to put such a voltage on it that normally the insulation breaks down around the object. Now, if somebody came along with some dielectric that could withstand fantastic voltages, now all of a sudden this stuff is going to become reality.
yeah, yeah.
But it's like anything else. It's the functionability is going to depend on the person or the research and the capabilities of the dielectric, if ever developed.
Well, another thing that you'd predicted that I thought was again, just from your experience of working with the high voltage projects, was there's a lot of talk nowadays about very small emitter sizes. But I remember this was 2 years ago. You were telling me about carbon nanofibers as emitters, and the latest research, I guess, is showing a few hundred volts or less can actually make these emit ions.
If you can get a small enough radius of curvature or a small enough object, you're going to get enough charge density at the end of those fibers to emit. And if you somehow arrange these things into some type of can't think of the word right now, and integrated all these little things, you would have an appreciable force. But you have to remember too. You've got to, there's got to be a separation distance between them because you're going to get charge cancellation too. But I can see a very viable and a very interesting research field in low voltage type ion emission.
Yeah, one of the things that I did when I was working on calculations was, as I worked it out for different voltages, I realized that, from the ion wind part of it, because I think that Beefield Brown is more than that, but definitely from the ion wind component of thrust, taking the voltage down from 50, 60,000 to then 30,000, and then being able to go down to a few hundred is really just this enormous force multiplier that might actually potentially bring it up to aircraft type efficiencies, and that would really make it a commercially viable solution.
Oh no, that's where research enters into the equation, and that's why guys like yourself and of course myself too, can um, plant the seed into some of these this younger generation who now have the benefits of computers to do all their arithmetical computations and everything, and concentrate on the more mathematical configurations to develop this stuff and be way ahead of where we were.
Yeah. Well,
So we got to plant the seed of interest, and this is where I think that Information Unlimited does a lot. We're forever getting people and younger generations who send us letters. They want a science project. They've got a scholarship. The Army gave them a scholarship because of this project. I've got a whole file. It must be 3 inches thick. And of course, that's a very treasured file because it shows that this quote-unquote risque type of the electronics field is very productive, and I think will help in the future, in channeling some of this young talent in these directions rather than having them sit in front of a computer and become a computer nerd. Which, don't get me wrong, is we need those guys too, but not everybody should be a computer nerd.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, one of the things, my day job has been in IT for years, and one of the things that's been kind of depressing in some ways is that the more popular computers become, the more that tends to take over the rest of electronics. And the power electronics was really what built kind of the American infrastructure, and it seems like that in some ways is starting to disappear.
Well, Information Unlimited, I think, are growing right now. We are expanding our horizons and increasing our business base here every month that goes by. We're increasing our even our magazine advertising is increasing.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I think a lot of this is due to the fact that we can show our projects as workable and as structured so that the average person can build them.
Oh, definitely.
A lot of these, we could show on how to make I have 500 kilojoules of capacitor storage in our lab, and we could show how to do a fantastic railgun, but the average tinkerer, the average projecteer is not going to be able to do it because he's just not going to have the facilities. I mean, 500,000 joules of capacitors costs us well into 6 figures to get these are decent capacitors, and you can use electrolytic capacitors for a while and all that, but I mean, one blows up, you've got a major problem. They don't like the reverse voltage. And you can Rube Goldberg and Ricky Dink these things together, but you're risking personal injury far more than you are if you use regular quality parts. But then again, it's cost ineffective.
Well, one of the things that's been kind of surprising, and in a way, it almost seems like it's been overlooked. One of the most impressive things for me about Information Unlimited and about your work has been, I keep seeing posts in news groups, and I'm getting letters from inventors talking about once we get this or that or the other thing to work, and there are a million projects out there, but the idea is, how are we going to start a company? And that's actually one of the achievements that you've been able to do. You've been able to make this into a real viable business, and so many others have failed with kind of the esoteric projects.
Well, yeah, I mean, because what we tried to do is we sell a lot of books on our website that I have never even read before. And we get a lot of people who buy the books, and then they'll ask us for support on the books. Now, unfortunately, I'm kind of in a little bit of a quandary because here I sell a product, yet I can't support the product. But unfortunately, a lot of these products have those projects, like you say, and they always seem to leave out the magic part. Especially some of this over Unity stuff, and before we make a presentation and come up with a kit or come out with a set of instructions where a person can go out and spend all kinds of dollars only to find out it doesn't work, we verify it in our labs. We may put a little color in it, but it is basically verified, so we can stand up and say, look, if you want to see this project in living color, or if you want to see it, you're welcome to come out to the lab. Just set up an appointment. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Well, I think
yeah.
this is very important in establishing credibility with the buyers who are going to spend money on these kits and these products that you can back up that they do work. But you have a lot of people out there that don't, and every once in a while, even with the lifters, is reasonably simple as they are. You'll have a lot of people that will say this thing doesn't work. The first thing you ask them, what did you build your lifter up? Did you follow the instructions? Oh yeah. What did you use for balsa wood? Oh, I didn't use balsa wood. I used pieces of toothpicks or something like that. And before you know it, the person didn't even begin to follow the instructions.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
then they wonder why the thing doesn't work.
y-
And the lifter I've always maintained is that if the craft construction is followed, like you clearly illustrated, the thing works every time. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it.
yeah, a lot of a lot of people like to modify it, and it works. It works a fair amount of the time. But one of the things I've noticed, I wrote I think a 40-step troubleshooting guide for the website, and then
Yeah,
I followed it up with I think another 40-step troubleshooting guide to focus on all the things the first one had missed.
yeah,
And unfortunately, I guess that's an aspect of new technologies. When gas motors were probably, when people were building those in their garage, I'm sure it was twice as bad. But still, just the business success that you guys have had in being able to reach the market, because one of the things that I've seen consistently is people working on projects, and there's this kind of expectation there, and I think what it is people haven't thought it all the way through. But I've had this in the past where I think, well, if I could only get it to work, then people would show up with money and everything would be fine. But in reality, from what I've seen, from what my understanding is, that's really just the start.
right. Well, a lot of people will go into a project and they don't understand that electronics and electricity, you've got to have, there's a lot of mathematical relationships that you have to, you have to adhere to. And one of the things that we do is before we do any project, we always make up a mathematical model. And, always make sure that it works on paper mathematically so you can substantiate it. You then proceed to do the thing, in the real world, and of course you find the mathematical model sometimes isn't quite exactly correct, but nevertheless, I mean, basically it is. And I think this is very important. I think a lot of hobbyists don't have a good mathematical training, and they will go out and they will just put some of the theory together and say, well, this is going to work and make sense, and do their thing, and only to go up a one-way street. I mean, people that do Tesla coils. For a while there, I mean, my God, you used to see designs of Tesla coils that didn't even make had no rhyme or reason for the designs.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
know, and everybody would be happy to be getting a 3-inch discharge with 100 watts of energy. And everybody would be happy as pigs in a poke, not knowing that they were only getting about 20% of the capability.
oh well, yeah. I mean, a lot of the emails that I get, people are just getting into electronics, and it's in some ways it's so esoteric, and
Yep.
I mean, Ohm's law is definitely essential, and I get lots of Ohm's law emails. Things like that. LC circuits are big for Tesla coils, so
Uh-huh.
yeah, these are. I was fortunate enough. I took electronics in college. Some of the classes there, and so I picked it up there. But even a lot of it, though, I think surprisingly is just as the experience builds, over the years. There are a lot of. I mean, I'm sure that you have tons and tons of just tinkerer secrets that really aren't in any textbook. These are things that people just come up with as they work.
Oh yeah. We have a lot of intellectual property and a lot of we have patents too. I don't know how many there are now, but I got a few patents I know. That are actually being used today in the market, and some of them have been around for like 15 years. I think they've even expired because I don't know. I don't even know if I get a royalty on some. I have to talk to my accountants, find out. But I know some of the older ones. I think they've already gone through their what do you call it? Their time limit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we're almost out of time, but one of the things I'd like to ask is, if people were visiting the website and, keeping track of your projects, what would be the next big thing to come? Because, now, again, I should re-mention, you have the book out, The Electronic Projects for the Evil Genius, and I bought mine from Barnes& and Noble, but you can get it at a variety of locations. But what's the next big thing to come from Information Unlimited?
Well, we're going to do a lot of high energy stuff. Again, I got to try to keep it within the realm of the bill, but we will be doing a lot of video on our own stuff where we can show accelerating objects to where they just about break up from velocity. But we'll be doing video on that stuff. But as far as projects, we're going to be coming up with a small railgun kit. We're going to be coming up with a new product that's called the magnetic cannon. That's on the drawing board now. That's just being finished. We've got a lot more, several more series of high voltage power supplies that go up to 400,000 volts at 1 milliamp, 400,000 volts. I'm sorry, 5 milliamps at 400,000 volts. We got electronic ventriloquism. We've got several Marx generators. We've got some small EMP type Kerf guns that are reasonably safe. I won't say totally safe, but as safe as you can get. That can demonstrate the ability to knock out electronics at close range. But again, we have this stuff that's in the lab that has higher power capability that again you can't offer to the public because it's impractical for them to try to build because of cost. And we got some more, more or less consumer-orientated products. We have a directional dog, we call it the canine controller, that is ready to be released for manufacturing over in Hong Kong. That should be ready. I was hoping it'd be ready by the summer, but it won't be ready probably till the fall. This is a product that directionally picks up the back of a dog, then puts out several high-energy pulses of acoustical ultrasonics. And unlike some of the stuff that's on the market now, it's directional, so you can have a fairly high sonic source without collateral effect because it's directional.
Oh, okay. Well, I should restate the website is www.amazingone.com. That's the Information Unlimited website. And then let me see. Is there anything you'd like to say in close, or?
Well, for people to keep visiting our website because, as I say, we're in a transient state right now of adding a lot of things and a lot of material to it and trying to make it a little bit easier to navigate. We're trying to. We've got a lot of new projects and products that will be occurring as we go on, and just to keep visiting and don't be afraid to email me with a question. Sometimes I have to be kind of abrupt because sometimes I've looked at my email and when you have 300 or 400 different one of them, 300 or 400 different emails over a period of a weekend, you kind of like, oh my God. Sometimes you try to answer with formatted type answers. So a lot of times you can't be that personal with them.
Oh, okay.